How's everybody doing today? I think we can be a little bit louder than that. That is so much better. This is grinding to success, because achieving what you want to achieve is never easy. It's about overcoming obstacles, but not just overcoming them, conquering them. Now, this photo right here, most of you will probably think that it must have had a very negative outcome. It's me crying in the rain in front of a lot of people. And I'm here to show you today that this moment right here was one of the most valuable moments of my career thus far. My name is Marissa Papaconstantinou, and I was born missing my right foot. I'm considered what's to be called a Symes amputee, and so I use a prosthetic device to get around just like anybody else in everyday life. Most people would look at my disability as a great challenge, and although it does have its challenges, I have not let it define the person that I am. Rather, it's just a small part of me. Growing up, I never looked at myself being differently from anybody else, even though I was the only kid I knew with a disability. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a community that always included me no matter what. And at home, my parents always instilled the values of if you set your mind to it, you can achieve anything. And so that was exactly the way I approached just about everything in life. I was the girl that played with all the boys at recess, while all my other friends sat off to the side and watched. Whether it was shooting hoops or kicking around a soccer ball or just beating up on my guy friends, we still make jokes about it today about how I was the only girl that used to participate, and I always was the one that was winning everything. I never saw disability. All I saw was ability. And I learned from a very young age that it's important to think about the things that we can do, not what we can't. I took up the sport of athletics at the age of 12 years old when I got my very first running blade from Holland Bloorview's Rehabilitation Center for Children. I wasn't really sure where I would go or what it would do, but I just joined a local track club simply for the love of running. But it was only till 1 year later where I realized I had the potential to set a goal for myself that I had only dreamed of as a child but wasn't even sure was possible. At 13 years old, I broke the Canadian record amongst women in Canada for the 100 meter for amputees below the knee. And it was in that moment where I realized that I had the ability to push for further, stronger, and faster. And so I set that goal in that very moment, that I was going to compete at the 2016 Paralympic Games 3 years later. I made my first World Championships team at 15 years old in Doha, Qatar, and I was the youngest one to compete by 5 years. I qualified for both my finals in my races, coming in 7th and 8th, and I was just really fortunate to experience that at such a young age. But the following year, that goal I set for myself those 3 years before was to qualify for the 2016 Paralympic Games. And even though I made that World Championships team the year before, I was still unsure of whether I had the ability to make that team. And so I worked harder than I ever had before. I thought to myself, track and field is an objective sport. It's a time. So I said, if I ran that time, it should be no reason that they can't take me on the team, regardless of my age. And so I worked harder than I ever had before that year. I sacrificed more than I ever had before. And it turned out that all that hard work paid off. And I made my very first Paralympic Games at 16 years old. And although all that hard work paid off, I was not ready for the challenges that I would be facing over those next 2 years. My Paralympic debut race, I got disqualified for stepping on the line in the 200 meter. I qualified for that final, and based on my times, I actually would have come fourth, so that it was a little rough. 2 days later, I missed out on the 100 meter final by 0.06 of a second. Fraction of a second. And I thought to myself, I worked so hard. Why did this happen? I don't understand. And after the games were over, after the closing ceremonies were done, I did a lot of reflecting. And I thought to myself, well, not a lot of people get to experience that at 16 years old, let alone flying all the way around the world by myself. And so I took that as a learning experience, getting disqualified, missing out on the final. And so I thought to myself that this was an opportunity for me to learn how to be resilient and to persevere. So after the Paralympic Games in 2016, I made the ultimate goal for myself, and that was to be at the 2017 World Championships the following year. Not only to compete, but to medal. Can I see a show of hands in here of who makes goals? I hope all of us in here would make goals, because goals give us purpose. They give us purpose to why we work so hard and why we want to push to be better as ourselves. Now, I want to see a raise of hands in here of who makes process goals, smaller goals you need to complete to reach your final big goal. So I'm seeing a little bit less hands. Now, here's where I really kicked myself in the butt. I started to think too much about the end goal, thinking about being on the podium, rather than doing the steps, doing the process that I needed to take to still get there. And so that year, I started to doubt myself a lot. I started to doubt my process, and I started to get really discouraged. I stopped eating, I stopped sleeping, and I stopped taking those final steps of preparation I needed to make sure I reached my final goal. And it was really hard because I thought to myself, well, before I was able to experience and conquer all these obstacles, and now I feel like I can't do it anymore. And that's when I stopped believing in myself. It came time for the race. Fast forward all the way until the final 200-meter race, where this was what I was looking forward to all year. That morning, it was pouring rain. I had adrenaline and excitement just rushing through my body for what I was about to take on, because I was waiting a whole year for this redemption. I started that race faster than I ever had before. I get around the bend, I just had about 80 meters to go, and I thought to myself in that split second, I have it. I just need to hold on and push through to the finish. Only 2 steps later, my hamstring popped. I fell to the ground in extreme pain. It felt like a gunshot had been gone through my leg. And I saw all my competitors finish the race in front of me while I was stuck and frozen. I couldn't move. And in the split second, I thought to myself that I really couldn't believe what had just happened to me. But no matter the pain I was in, I got up and I finished the race. That brings us back to this photo right here. Me, crying in the rain in front of 30,000 people. And no matter how much pain I was in, I wanted to finish that race because I'd never not finished a race before. And I said, you know what? Regardless of the pain, I'm gonna finish it and get through this. And little did I know the reaction I would receive out of doing that. To me, I was just trying to finish a race. But to other people, I couldn't believe the example I set for millions of people watching that day. It's so important to encourage one another, because I have not done any of this on my own. It's been from the help of my parents, my coaches, my teammates, and my girl gang that supports me no matter what. I want girls and women to feel the same sense of passion for sport that I have been so fortunate to have my whole life. Be that girl who plays outside with the boys. Be that girl who encourages other girls to play outside. Set that example and don't be afraid to do so. There will be challenges on your pathway to success, because success isn't perfect. There are peaks, there are valleys, there are so many challenges that come within it. But if you want to succeed in whatever it is you want to do, something within you will always push to the finish. I've been fortunate enough to have all these opportunities at such a young age, and I've learned so much of this. Now I know what you're thinking, that, if you keep pushing hard, you can keep working and you can succeed. And you're probably thinking, well, Marissa, that's so much easier said than done. And I can promise you, you're right. Because even sometimes myself, I can lose sight of these words I'm telling you right now, because it can be so easy to get into a hole and doubt ourselves, doubt our capabilities. But just know that if you really want to succeed at something, you have all the strength and power to be successful in whatever it is you do. But sometimes things don't always work out the way we want them to, and that is to be expected because we're human. We make mistakes, we overthink things, we fall down, but it's how you get back up. If you want to keep pushing, something within you will always get back up. I know myself that I've had all these challenges, and to keep pushing forward, I've always thought to myself, well, it's important to focus on those goals and focus on the big picture. The hardest part is believing in yourself. Once you have that belief, though, once you believe that you can achieve what you want to achieve, it doesn't matter how many times you fall down, because let me tell you, I've fallen down a lot, but it's how you get back up on your grind to success. Thank you.